Hello, everyone. It's time for the second half of the week of October 1st lecture, Young Adult Materials, List 757, Fall of 2018, and we are continuing on with nonfiction and looking at biographies. We're also going to be talking about some sports literature. So I will try to get through this quickly since it's about 10 o'clock at night and I'm pooped, and you're probably sick of me talking anyway, so here we go. So, some information about biographies. The word biography was first introduced in 1683. John Dryden wrote Plutarch's Parallel Lives. So this idea of the looking at famous people's lives goes back a long, long way. The term was new, but people had been reading about generals, politicians, and religious leaders for a long time. In the 60s, surprise, surprise, and it's changed, but not that much, unfortunately. Biographies were predominantly about white men. Subjects included inventors, statesmen, soldiers, and business leaders. So, what's good about biographies and autobiographies? I will tell you straight up, biographies are not generally my first choice, but I have been surprised a couple times at how much I enjoy them. It's just, I don't think of them first. So, the cool thing about biographies is that it allows a young reader to vicariously experience other people's lives and historical periods. It also adds another dimension to their understanding of human nature and human history. And that's a quote. Those are from Rosemary Chance from 2010. This is just a list of current biographies, but there's much more of a balance. It's not just dead white guys now. Yay! All right, so Claudette Colvin, Twice Towards Justice. Good Brother, Bad Brother. The story of Edwin Booth and John Wilkes Booth. John Lennon, All I Want Is the Truth. Lafayette in the American Revolution. Escape, the story of the great Houdini. This circulates frequently in my library, by the way. The Voice That Challenged a Nation, Marian Anderson and the Struggle for Equal Rights. This also circulates at my library. To Dance, a ballerina's graphic novel. I don't have that and need to purchase it. Satchel Paige, Striking Out Jim Crow, a graphic novel. And Janis Joplin, Rise Up Singing. So these are some good YA biographies, and obviously they're much more diverse than they used to be. So there are different types of biographies. You have the straight up biography, you have autobiographies and memoirs, collective biographies, and biographies in series. Benefits to YA readers. They can learn about role models. They can learn about different people, particularly people who have different backgrounds than they do, which is always helpful to kids to learn that other people have different lives than they do. They can demonstrate how decisions, opportunities, and changes influence a person's life. Thought processes of people who have impacted society. So how did Bill Gates come up with those ideas and then implement them? That's a neat thing to look at. Specialized focus for personal interest or research. It can provide a research model, and of course, it can provide pleasure to the reader. Advantages of using biographies, you can use them across the curriculum. So I have had math teachers come in and say, hey, I want to do a biography project. And we have used a combination of books and biographical dictionaries and online sources to do that. So you can learn about scientists, social studies, fine arts, ELA, writing, and like I said, mathematicians. I will also let you know that I have an English teacher. Most of my English department will assign a biography at some point during the school year. So if you can get your teachers working with you, you can push your biographies a little bit more. And certainly my AP language teacher always forced her students to read about biography. Autobiographies give you an opportunity to teach some critical thinking skills to students. First, you've got the account of a person's life or part of their life. It can offer a revelation to the reader of the writer's conception of the life he or she has lived. And who knows more about the person than the person? The question is it objective? People are often poor witnesses to their own lives, so they're not untrustworthy, but students should be aware of celebrity bios, ghostwriters, book doctors, or people who paint themselves in a more positive picture than they really deserve. Memoirs are a specific type of biography, focuses on a particular segment of the person's life. We've mentioned, I think I'm thinking of one of your assignments. One of you did Jacqueline Woodson as your author assignment. But anyway, hopefully you'll read your classmates' assignments if they post them in the optional forum. Please do. Most of your assignments so far have been excellent, and I will get through them by tomorrow before midnight when your next thing is due. So Brown Girl Dreaming by Woodson. Woodson's childhood growing up in South Carolina and New York, and El Defoe. I have this at work and I haven't read it yet. So Belle's childhood experiences growing up deaf. The House on Sugar Beach gets assigned at my school frequently as far as reading biographies. A nifty subset of biographies are collective biographies, which means one book presenting the stories of several individuals. This can be a way to write a book about individuals whose lives may not yet merit an entire book, but they've got good background stories anyway. It can get some previously ignored individuals into the library and into the classroom. They often have a unifying theme. So Indian chiefs, obviously it's about Indian chiefs. Freedom's children, young civil rights activists tell their own stories. Two-Fisted Science and Dignifying Science are graphic novels. And The Dark Game, True Spy Stories. I will tell you that students tend to like, or young people tend to like, spy stories a whole lot. Biographies in a series. They come from a variety of vendors and in a variety of formats. They tend to be shorter in length. Very often they have matching covers, so you can tell which publisher came up with a series of books. They seldom make literary award lists because they get kind of churned out by publishing companies. Though they have certain benefits. It can offer you books. These books in a series can facilitate reading competencies. You can do research on reading books in a series. Very often a reluctant reader will like a book in a series, even if it's nonfiction or biography, because they get familiar with the format and then they struggle less with comprehension. And it can scaffold readers' engagement. They understand the pattern and they plot, and so they understand how the book will progress. So this is a good thing. It is also, I would not call myself particularly lazy in book ordering, but when I'm trying to pad my biography section, because I don't read heavily in biography, sometimes I do lean on the series if I'm trying to go, okay, I need everybody from the Harlem Renaissance and there's a series. So I'll go click and yes, I'm going to buy them. So the sports genre. I am an athlete. I'm a lifelong athlete, and I've never been big on the sports genre. But I will tell you, if you work with teenagers, you need to know your sports genre. You need to know it. I get occasional girls and mostly boys, but this is a big one. This is a big request. You got to know your sports books. So, why are they good? They demonstrate ways of being a good sport. Biographies and autobiographies about influential athletes can give kids a background, especially kids who are really interested or who think they're going to play in the NBA. If they read about some of the trials of their favorite stars, they get a better idea that, well, maybe they don't want to do that. Information books that contain statistics, history, terminology, and issues. Sometimes kids are just big fans of athletes and want to know more about them. I encourage this. I also encourage kids to try anything, but some of them come in and think they're going to play in the NBA and they don't play in high school, so it's a little confusing to me. Anyway, you got to know your sports books because you'll be asked. All right, sports novels. It is a growing genre. There are books about team sports, golf, tennis, extreme sports, snowboarding, off-roading, NASCAR. There are often books about coming of age, suspenseful, with challenges and risk-taking. And obviously, there's a history of popularity with male readers. This is one of my most frequent requests from young men. Where are your sports books? I also get requests for adventure and murder and what else do guys ask for? Adventure a lot, or spy novels. But sports books are at the top of the list, I would say. So some of your YA authors of sports novels. Edward Bloor, who wrote Tangerine. I know my sons both liked that book very much. Chris Crutcher. I love Chris Crutcher. If you don't know about Chris Crutcher, well, you should know that name, but I believe he does counseling for troubled youth, and that's where he gets a lot of his ideas. I believe he was also a mischief maker as a young man, and so he understands the angst that young men experience. So some of his books include Running Loose. That's misspelled on the slide. Sorry, I'm going to keep going anyway. It's Loose, Loose, which is about football and track. And the main character, butts heads with the football coach and quits the team. Chinese Handcuffs about basketball, and I haven't read that. Staying Fat for Sarah Burns and Whale Talk, which are both about swimming. They're great, even if you don't like swimming. I hate swimming. I'm afraid I'll drown. But those are great books anyway. Carl Duiker writes about Night Hoops is obviously about basketball, and it's about a young man whose father is completely dysfunctional. And Jim Candy is about a kid who ends up taking steroids, and it's football. Karen Servatis, I think that's how you say her name, writes biographies, and obviously you can see the picture of the cover of that book down there, and it's the USA Today, and that's a series of biographies, so I believe she's written others in the series. Some more YA authors of sports novels. John Feinstein, Last Shot, One-on-One, Rivalry, and Rush for the Gold. I know I have a couple of his novels in my library and haven't delved into his yet. Mike Lupica, Game Changers, Heat, and the Bat Boy. My boys, again, love these. John Ritter and John Tunis are baseball novelists. Tim Green, baseball great, Rivals, and others. Tim Green is also very popular with my young men. Nonfiction sports books for teens can be about a sport, its history and traditions, or about the athletes. So some titles you may want to look into purchasing for your library. Boys in the Boat, 9 Americans and Their Epic Quest for the Gold at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Fearless, One Woman, One Kayak, One Continent. LeBron James, The Making of an MVP. When March Went Mad, the game that transformed basketball. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird playing against each other in the 1979 NCAA Finals. Just a little side note here. My dad used to have season tickets with his office to the Celtics, and I got to see Larry Bird play when I was a teenager. Isn't that cool? Anyway, the soccer book, The Sport, the Teams, the Tactics, the Cups. And I will tell you that I interviewed a bunch of my male African-American students last spring, and they said that my football books were crap. And I'm going to remedy that shortly. My budget has just opened up. But keep in mind, you have to be accommodating all of your patrons, and I have let my sports books, my nonfiction sports, slip a little bit. I'm glad my students told me, though. So put these on your order list. Some other resources, you might want to click on this top 10 sports books for youth. That's with Booklist. It is a yearly list, so it's up to date. The 2017 list is up. I don't know if the 2018 list is up yet. I forgot to check for that. Anyway, that link is good and will take you to Booklist, and you might want to surf around and see if you can find the 2016 and the 2015 top list also, if you're interested in purchasing sports books or if that's a focus for you this year. Game On. This site's a little bit dated, but it is a Waltham, Massachusetts library website with selective lists of recommended young adult books by sport. So if you have somebody who is like, oh, I'm totally into baseball, then it's got a good list of baseball books. Or I want to read about football because I play football. That can help you focus. Upcoming assignments. Make sure you read our articles posted this week about narrative nonfiction. Read the articles about graphic novels and manga in preparation for next week's lecture. Make sure you get those literature logs in by midnight on Thursday, October 4th. A couple of you have contacted me and said, hey, I'm using my spare days or a spare day. Also, I want to let you know I've really enjoyed the author presentations that I have read so far. I will get the rest of those read, commented on, and graded before midnight tomorrow when your literature logs are due. So I'll make sure you have at least 2 grades in, and you'll know how you stand. And if you've missed some discussions, I'll let you know. Missing a discussion won't kill you. Missing several will end up being a little bit of a problem. So make sure you're staying on top of those as well. Any questions? Please do email me. I'll try to be a little bit more religious about checking our website. I got really distracted by the news last week. Sorry about that. So email me at havercam@mailbox.sc.edu, and you can, of course, post to the discussion board if you need information. And hopefully you're feeling good about what you're learning in here, and hopefully you've read a whole lot of amazing young adult literature. I hope you're having fun with that. All right, take care, and I'll see you next week.